at all. Okay, well, awesome. Well, hello everyone. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining this information session about the Transatlantic Outreach Program study tours to Germany that we're planning for 2026. My name is Jenny Wendell. I'm Managing Director of the Transatlantic Outreach Program, and I'm here this evening with my colleague Mallory Bubar, who is our Education Projects Manager.
Hi,
We don't
everybody.
want to we don't want to take up too much of your time, and we know there may be a lot of questions. So I think we'll get straight to it. We want to talk a little bit about TOP as a program, some generals about the study tours, and then dig into the application. And Mallory's got everything up to show you even the application portal and what you need to do there. We'll give you some tips for how to submit a good application, and then we will open it up for questions. If you do have questions that you think of as we go, feel free to type those into the chat, and I'll just kind of monitor that as we go through, and then we'll make sure that we cover those at the end. So, great.
All right. And I will go
That's
ahead
it.
and pull up the PowerPoint. And-
It is showing us the full, there we go.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, you all are here because you're interested in the Transatlantic Outreach Program and our study tours that we do. I'm sure you've heard about it from other teachers that you know who've traveled before, maybe through your professional organizations. So we're really grateful that you've taken the time out of your evening to learn about our program and the in-depth professional development that we offer teachers in Germany. A little bit about the program. There we go. So the Transatlantic Outreach Program was founded in 2002. So we've already been around for over 20 years. We're getting ready to get to 25. And our goal is to promote education about Germany through our teaching materials to encourage dialogue about contemporary Germany. We do that through workshops and other professional development opportunities. And then, of course, you'll hear because we also provide the opportunity for social studies. And in the past, we've also had STEM educators experience Germany in person through our study tours. And we are a public-private partnership, which is a pretty unique organization with the funding both from the public and private side. We are funded by the Federal Republic of Germany's Foreign Office, so essentially their State Department, the Goethe Institute, which is Germany's cultural representation around the world, and Deutsche Bank. And these are three really big names in Germany. Obviously, the federal government, and then the Goethe Institute and Deutsche Bank. And so, thanks to our partners, we're able to fund these tours, first thing. And then the second thing is that because these are the partners who make up our program, we really have a lot of access to experts, to schools, to businesses, to government offices, things that you wouldn't be able to do or experience on your own as a tourist. So we're really grateful to our partners who've been with us now for over 20 years. Great. And then I will turn it over to Mallory to dig into information about the tours, and I'll keep my eye on the chat.
Good. All right. Thank you. And keep an eye. I think there's still people filtering in as well.
Yeah.
Um, okay. So the 2026 top study tours to Germany. So we'll go over just a little bit of what they are. So, as Jenny said, they're for social studies educators in the US and Canada. This year, the study tours will be 10 days long, but they are fully funded. So that means we're covering your flights, your hotels. We do 2 meals a day. So you'll basically be paying 1 meal a day and souvenirs. And I think when we do a budget for you all, we give a pretty high budget for food, but you can also eat pretty cheap in Germany. Street food is quite delicious, if that is a concern. But it is the most important thing to remember going on this. It's a group professional development opportunity. So you are going to be spending a lot of time with your group. This is not a free solo trip to Germany. And we'll go into a little bit more about what we do while we're there, but it is designed to give you a broad understanding of contemporary Germany, country, and the current issues in Germany and Europe. So we're going to have three study tour dates this summer. I think many of you have probably already seen it on the website, but we will have one from June 14th through the 24th. So you'd fly on the 13th, arriving on the 14th, the 28th of June through the 8th of July. So that one is over the 4th of July holiday. We do recognize that, but Germany can be fun on the 4th of July too. I've been over there a number of years now. And then the 12th through the 22nd of July. And so again, all of those you would fly out the day before, arriving on that start day. And we can show you in the application as well. You'll be able to select which of these actually work for you. Perhaps all of them work for you, and you can also rank them as a priority. And when we look at that, when we're looking at acceptances. So the typical programs include school visits. I think these are incredibly special. So I've only been with TOP for just under 2 years, but I've gone now 2 years in a row to Germany with the groups. And I was really curious how the school visits were going to work with teachers who don't speak German, sitting in a classroom with a bunch of kids speaking German. And they might be my favorite part of the entire trip. Because you really are getting to see how these classrooms function in Germany. And again, most of the students do speak English. So even this summer, we took a group to a fourth grade English class. And so the whole thing was conducted in English, and it was them getting a chance to show off everything that they've learned in English so far, talk about their lives. I've been to a younger, like third or fourth grade gym class or PE class. And so all of that's pretty understandable, but the teachers work with you, and it's just really great. And you all then get to meet the teachers and understand, how it is, what it's like to be a teacher in Germany, and realize that a lot of the issues are the same, cross-cultural. So um, you'll get to have meetings with subject experts. So going to immigration offices in different cities, and going to museums and talking to the leaders in the museum. So oftentimes it's not just, the tour guides, it's actually somebody at the museum, somebody in the education department speaking with you and talking to you. Meeting with nonprofits that are over there, meeting with community groups. One of the really special groups that we meet with in Berlin is the Stadtteilmutter. So this is a group of local women helping new immigrant women into the country and sort of easing that transition to living in Germany. You get to visit companies and training facilities. This summer we were able to go on a tour of Volkswagen, and this was a full tour, no pictures allowed style tour, where we got to see a car be put together from the very start to the very end. Visits to different historical sites. We do city and walking tours anytime we arrive in a new city. That's, one, to learn a little bit about where you are, but also just get you oriented. So in that limited amount of free time, you can get around. Museum and tourist site visits, cultural events, top partner visits. So as you can see here in the top photo, this was from this summer, the group in Berlin going to the Auswärtiges Amt, or the Federal Foreign Office, their State Department. And then underneath, we have the group from this summer going to Point Alpha, which was the American outpost at the east-west border between former East and West Germany. So we do get to go to a lot of different places that some other groups don't do, because of who our partners are, and because they've known us for so long too. We have really great relationships with a lot of the places that we go, but we do not. We'll stress. Talk to a lot of people at NCSS this weekend. We don't always go to the same places, because we do build these tours based on your interests, and we'll talk about that in the application too. You get to rank sort of your priorities and the topics that you want to see, and when we put the group together, we do look at those, and we build the tour around those. But in that last little point, very limited free time. So these are 10, 12-hour days that we are going. So from breakfast in the morning, you're talking to each other, morning meetings. You might have, the break for lunch. If dinner's together, we'll have meetings in the afternoon. We have a dinner together. So we're going outright. And then some of the cultural events are in the evening as well. I think the group this summer, when they came back, they said all of their Apple Watches, Fitbits, everything were yelling at them because they weren't getting enough steps in. Because, we're not in Germany anymore. So a couple of tips for applying to the top study tour. So this is one of our top groups this summer. We see Jenny there in front of the Brandenburg Gate. I will say, I think there has been a rare occasion when they have not gone to Berlin, but typically all groups do go to Berlin at the end, especially so we can get a visit to the State Department. Okay, so some technical tips for the application before starting. I think most of you have read this, but adding that gap no reply at gute.de. or any sort of just adding that at gutta.de domain to your safe senders list is really key. We see it a lot where our emails do not go through, especially to school emails, because obviously you all have very strong spam filters on your school emails. So this will help some of those emails to go through. Verification emails from the GAP system. And then also, most importantly, is the employment verification letter. So getting whoever is writing that letter to add that GAP no reply at gutta.de to their safe senders list so that that link can go through. Because they'll have to receive a link, upload the letter on your behalf. And so they do have to create an account. And then once they create the account, they have to go back in and re-click the link that was sent in the email in order to upload that letter. Any of them run into issues, reach out to us. They can't get it, reach out to us. We do have some workarounds to the system because we know that spam filter strong on the school emails. Okay, content tips for the application. So making sure that you do read through for spelling, grammar, and punctuation before submitting. My biggest tip here, the application system does not check for spelling and grammar. So my biggest recommendation is typing that out in a Word doc first, copying and pasting it in, and just making sure that it's all in there, just to make sure that everything is in there. I know if I'm trying to type in there quickly, I'm going to mistype something. If I'm reading back through, I'm not going to read that one letter off. Making sure you answer the prompts fully and directly. I'll go over that a little bit more when I walk through the application, sort of exactly what that means, because it is this next point. Making sure your professional statement of purpose is career and student centered is one of the biggest things that we do see. And this is one of the biggest tips that we do give to people, that, it's very exciting to go to Germany. I know a lot of people have some sort of connection to Germany. They get very excited when they're writing it, but that's not the question at hand. So it's really asking about your career and how your students are going to be impacted, how you're going to bring this back to the classroom. So, and then making sure your lesson plan has strong contemporary Germany connections and the learning outcomes. So this is, I'm a history person. This was one that baffled me when I first started, and I can see though how easily this can be done. So if you are looking at something like talking about the Holocaust or World War II, obviously that is in the past, but you can bring that into now by talking about how it's talked about now in Germany, sort of memorialization, things like that. So even if it is something historical that you're talking about, just how do you bring that into contemporary Germany? How is it being discussed today? How is it impactful today? And then making sure your lesson plan stands out. So get creative with it. We know there's not a lot of space, but we understand that there's not a lot of space there. But you can do some fun things in the space that's there. And so if we do, I will go now into the application and look at our website. But if you have any questions or issues with the application system, best way to contact us is at our general inbox, top@gutta.de. So either Jenny or I will get back to you with any of the questions that you may have. Making sure you follow us on social media. We have had issues, and again, emails not going through, acceptance emails not going through, unfortunately. So we do announce when the applications have gone out on our social media. So if you do see that, that's when you can also go and look to see if that email's come in. If it hasn't, then you can reach out to us. I'm going to stop the share and switch over to the application. 1 second. Do you have any questions that we need to answer before we move to the application?
None in the chat yet, no.
Okay. All right. So general application. So I just logged in with my Gmail account so that you can see exactly what you are going to see, because ours does look a little different on our end. Making sure you're reading all of this before you continue. Again, this is about that gap no reply at gutta.de. Make sure you've got that added to your safe senders list. Make sure you're checking for the spam folder. There might be a delay also in your request going through to get that link sent to them. So it might take, I've seen it take up to an hour before it comes through in our inbox when we've done tests. So just in case, it might have a little bit of a delay. Your application is not complete until that letter has been uploaded and you've clicked the send button on the last page. I think it gets we've set it up so it's pretty clear that it hasn't been submitted yet, but we do want to make sure you're not allowed to submit it until that application, that letter has been uploaded. So you will also know if it's been uploaded or not. But you do need to make sure you hit send at the end once it has been uploaded. As a little bit of info, the applications are reviewed by top staff and top alumni. So past people who have gone on the top trips, it's read through first by 3 different alumni and weighted before Jenny and I get to them and we read through a good portion of the top applicants too. But that's who's looking at your applications. Note again, you'll see that this is a strong one, keeping your students and community as your primary focus. And then we did add a note this year. We know AI is big. It can be a helpful tool to brainstorm, preparation for writing, but we're not going to accept applications that are copied and pasted from an AI platform, and we are checking for that. And in case there's anybody on here, top alumni, unfortunately, and if you become a top alum, I'm sure I'll get this question from you. You are not eligible to reapply. So once you go, you have gone. Applicant information, simple ones. So if you're a top alum, if you're a reapplicant, these are things that we want to know. Your school information, pretty standard. So how many social study classes do you teach per day? If you are more of a general ed teacher, you can put words in there. You can kind of put a short explanation in there if you need to as well. And then we do ask about German. That's just information that we want to know as well once we do accept people, what statistics are, but it's not something that we do look at. Travel availability here is the travel dates for the selection. So again, you can pick the one that works for you and you can prioritize. If all of them work for you, you can prioritize 1, 2, 3. If only one, then you just put that one in one. And again, we'll try our best to go with your first priority. If you are selected, I think it's been a very, very rare instance where it's been the last priority. But these are all things that we look at when we're building those groups. Here are the study tour topics that I was mentioning earlier. So we do want to make sure everybody sees this. There are 15 topics mentioned here. You can add up to 10. So it does cap out at 10, but you can go down here and just keep adding entries until 10. So if you do want to rank 10, you can rank 10. If you only want to rank 5, you can rank 5, but it will go to 10, but you will have to drop 5. So I hope it's not too hard of a choice for some people. Resume is simple. So uploading your resume here, the employment verification letter. Again, there are instructions here. If you want to download the instructions for your supervisor and send that to them as well, you can, adding their name, adding their email, you can hit send request. If they haven't received it, this just turns into resend requests. So you can send it as many times as needed. And you can also change email addresses too, if that's necessary, and send it to somebody else. Or if that email is not working for them, you can send to a different email for them. Okay, big ticket items, the weighted items. So professional statement of purpose. We do ask 4 questions as part of this, so make sure you are answering all 4 questions. You have a 4,000 character limit. There is a check here, so you can see it does go down. Again, I recommend typing it out in Word doc or something that can check your spelling before you put it in here, and just making sure all of it did get saved into the box. Right, your motivation for applying to study in Germany as it relates to your career. Again, there is, connection there. That is fantastic, but we do want to know more how it's going to relate to your career. What concepts from contemporary Germany would you like your students to understand? If you've never been to Germany, do some research. What are the topics that you're teaching right now that you think Germany would help them understand? And so you can do a little research and include those in there. We understand some people may have never gone, may not have had that much interaction with Germany. That's fine. In what ways do you engage students with global issues, cultural diversity, or international perspectives in your teaching? Share some specific strategies, activities, or resources that you use. We know there's a 4,000 character limit. So you can, limit what you are putting in there, but we just want to see that you have like some concrete ideas and things that you do with your students already, or if you haven't been able to, things that you're thinking of, or how is this going to help you be able to implement those things? Um, what specific strategies, activities would you implement to ensure that your participation in the study tour benefits your students, your colleagues, and your wider educational community? So again, this is then when you're coming back, we really want to see how are you going to carry this on? So how are you going to take these 10 days in Germany and how is your community going to benefit from it? And so working with your students, you do write a lesson plan for us. So when you come back from Germany, you'll have to do a multiplier activity, which can be a social media post, host a workshop, and then write a lesson plan. But we do know that the impact on the students goes far beyond that lesson plan, that one singular lesson plan. So if you're thinking of different ways that you can, implement this in your classroom, we want to hear about that. Talking about the wider educational community, we've had students start or teachers that have started German clubs at their schools. We've had teachers that have taken this into different groups that they're a part of. So we had a STEM teacher that actually does a lot with his world culture group and the other teachers. And so he's been implementing this and implementing contemporary Germany into that group. So thinking about it in that way is what we're really looking for. So what are you going to do with this information when you return? The personal statement um, is basically a chance, anything you feel like that has been left out, that you feel like you have not been able to share so far, that you want to elaborate on from your resume. So including your role as a teacher leader in your community, a curriculum developer. If there's a line on that resume that you really think this makes you stand out, you can talk about that here. So this is just your opportunity to say or elaborate on anything that you feel like hasn't been asked and you really think is important for us to know about. Then the lesson plan. Right, so we're looking at a social studies lesson plan based on one of the topics listed below to make contemporary Germany more relevant for your students. So the content of your lesson should focus on contemporary Germany while also making connections to your existing social studies curriculum and your own students' communities and lives. We understand, again, space restrictions are limiting, and this may result in a simplified lesson than what you are used to. We know what the limitations are. We understand that. We are looking for the grade level, focus questions, lesson overview, student learning outcomes, teaching methods and steps, and then a brief description on how you'll assess their content mastery. You'll notice the topics are the same topics that we listed before. So again, if there's something that you're really, really excited about, this is your chance to implement it into a lesson. And this is really what we're looking for. And I think, Jenny, if you want to add or if you want to just back me up on this, we're looking to see how you can incorporate this into something that you're already teaching. All right, especially when those lessons come back and you can see the lessons that we've published in the past. We're trying to incorporate this into topics that are already being covered so that other teachers can use these as well. So looking at, and right now my mind is drawing complete blank on these, but no, when we say, memorialization, I think a big thing too that we see is being able to talk about maybe things that are going on here in the United States, but it's a hot button topic. You're having a hard time breaking through to the students, so that maybe there's something in Germany that you can talk about to open up that conversation a little bit. So we have a good lesson on the four American presidents in the Berlin Wall. And so, that's talking about our American presidencies in a global context, but also talking about divisions within a country that existed for many years. So sort of bringing those two worlds together is what we're looking for. You'll see here too, again, we have the characters, it's shorter. And then for your instructional strategies and procedures, so the actual lesson, the meat of it, you do have 5,000 characters for that. And then after that, it is just acknowledging um, that everything is true and correct. And then also number 6, I did want to point out, in case you don't know, there is a $350 refundable deposit. So we are asking if you are accepted that you are willing to pay this deposit. This is returned to you once you complete the workshop, the lesson, and the multiplier activity. So it is fully funded. We do have that deposit, but you do get it back as long as you complete those 3 items.
But
And
again,
yes, to,
that's
yeah,
not now, that's if you're accepted.
if you're accepted, yes, not as part of the application. No, no.
We used to get checks. So we're like, not
Okay,
yet.
no. And I will share our website. If you want to go here for the study tours, it is just gute.de/top study tours, is all of the information about the study tours. This recording will be posted there after the holidays. We currently cannot make edits to our website, so we will post it there once we are back. Got the quick facts, but also the biggest thing, I recommend bookmarking that application page once you start so that when you go back to it, it's easier to find again. Because we know some people are going to start before the holidays, they'll come back, they can't remember. But if you can't remember where that website was, come back to this page, access it through here. I get a lot of emails in January, people trying to log into the gute.de website. That is not where you need to log in. That is not where the application is. So if you don't have a bookmark, come back here, click on this. Um, we do have our frequently asked questions on here. Highly recommend reading through all of these. So in terms of the topics, travel itinerary, the cost of it, physically intense is the experience. I did make a joke about the steps, but it's not a joke. We do move a lot on these. So, as somebody said this summer, they were indeed ready for the 10 to 20,000 steps, but they were not ready for how briskly we walk those 10 to 20,000 steps. So, we did add that this year to make sure that people understand that. Sometimes we do have tight turnarounds between meetings and we are moving quickly. People are expected to carry their own luggage as part of the tours. We try our best to avoid stairs to make sure that there is always an elevator around. If we absolutely need one, obviously we can find one. We can make those arrangements. But 2 years ago, escalator was broken at the subway station near the hotel, so we were hauling our suitcases up that staircase. It's part of it. Again, we will work with you, but that is sort of an expectation. Free time again is emphasized. We do really want to make sure people understand that this is a group tour. We do usually give a half day to a day free to go and do what you want. That's usually in Berlin at the end. We'll stress no German is needed to apply. You don't need to speak any German. Jenny and I or somebody else from the team will be on the trip with you, along with two guides from the Goethe Visitors Program, leading us around. All of us speak German, so we'll be there to help you out. I think, do we have any questions? I'll add this one. Yeah, applying for a passport now. If you don't have a passport, we do recommend beginning that process. So we will send out notifications end of March, early April at the very latest. But with that first tour in June, if you're waiting until then, that might be a tight turnaround to get that passport in. So we do recommend starting that process as soon as possible.
We do have some questions in the
Okay.
chat that I have been answering as we go, but I'm
Okay.
happy to kind of scroll back and go through these.
Mhm.
In terms of the resume, short resume or full CV, either or, usually they're 2 to 3 pages. We'll typically see education and career experience on one page, and on the back page, then elaborating a little bit on curriculum that you've maybe been writing, projects that you've done, leadership roles that you've taken on. But you can submit either. Employment verification should ideally come from your principal or potentially a vice principal. We know principals get busy. We know, you know, sometimes things can be challenging with administrators. If you find that that's maybe a struggle for you, reach
Mhm.
out to us. We can talk about what good alternatives would be, but the vast majority should and will be from the principal. What was the next one? Typing out your responses and copying and pasting them into the application should not be an
Mhm.
issue for an AI flag. So we've put it in a lot of places. Can I use AI to write my
Mhm.
application? Answer is no. this is the first year that we've been very explicit with that. We've kind of been the last couple of years watching, seeing what does it mean to have people have access to AI and do this application. AI is a great tool. I use it myself when I'm trying to write something. I'm just locked a little bit. I can't think. But especially for these applications, we are not taking Chat GPT on a study tour. We're taking a teacher on a study tour. And what we see a lot in the applications where we started to be able to tell really this is written by AI because it sounds like very corporate. Like that doesn't sound like a teacher. It sounds very corporate and it's a lot of big words that don't say much. And so it really actually isn't even in your interest to just copy and paste it out of Chat GPT. We really want to know, and the questions are asking, what do you do in your classroom? What topics are important for your students? What are you going to do with this experience? So definitely use it as a tool, but if it's, if we start to be reading it and something's fishy, we're going to look it up. And if it's a high percentage AI, we're not going to go further with that application. Um, so that was that question. Do three separate groups do any collaboration together? The groups are not traveling at the same time, so they don't collaborate. So they're kind of separate cohorts of 14 teachers. But we will very likely all be together for the orientation that we do beforehand. And I'm definitely also floating around an idea of getting everybody together afterwards to maybe present about our lessons and things like that. It's still forming, but I think it's a good idea. We haven't done it before. Um, how many applicants do you accept? So again, it's 14 teachers per tour. We'll take 42 teachers total next summer. We never know how many applicants we're going to get, but typically we get about 4 applications for every 1 spot on a study tour. So it's competitive, but I think 1 in 4 is still a pretty good chance. Many people apply multiple times. That's normal. So please don't get discouraged if you're, applying for another time. We know, we ask you in the application, are you the applicant? We see that. So it's something we're cognizant of, but we've been doing this for almost 25 years now, and it's pretty normal to have to give it a couple of tries. All right, let's see. In higher education, can it be the department chair who is submitting your employment verification? I would say in that case, then yes. If you've got a dean or a department chair, then that would be fine. Might you take 2 teachers from the same school? We are very unlikely to take 2 teachers from the same school in the same tour. And that's just because in our experience, it kind of shifts the dynamic in the group. And you kind of have people who, I mean, there's always people who randomly know each other from like other teacher groups, but when it's definitely 2 people from the same school, in my experience, it shifts the group dynamic. It can lead to cliques. So we try very hard not to do that. But we wouldn't say, oh, they're both from the same school. We're not going to accept both of them. We would just look at different tour dates that might be possible. So part of your resume is in French because you are in Canada. Yes. Could you please translate it into English? We do not speak French.
Very, very, very little.
Really, yes.
Yeah.
Just a few little words, but probably not enough to read the CV. I apologize for that. Have you had primary teachers in your past groups? Yes. Elementary school teachers have always been eligible for the program. Um, they tend to be a smaller percentage of the applicants who are accepted. I don't think that that's not by design, but I think it's definitely can be a little bit harder for elementary teachers to make connections to all of the topics just because a lot of it is it's contemporary, it's politics, it's economics, things like that. But elementary teachers every year apply successfully for the program. And I think in that case, then it's really we're looking and trying to see is it clear that this elementary school teacher is going to be able to make full use of the experience? Have they chosen a contemporary topic, or is there maybe a struggle there in making that connection? We just have so few spots that, we really have to make sure that the people we're accepting can make full use of the experience. Great. And Mallory has posted the link to the study tour website, which then has the link to the application in there. These are great questions. As you were going through, I was sort of thinking of my own thoughts and tips. I've been with the program for almost 12 years now, so it's been a while. So I've seen a lot of applications in that time, and I've been on a lot of study tours. So really, like my tips for the application are have somebody else read what you're writing, especially the lesson plan. Ask another teacher to look at it and tell you if there's something missing, because the people who are reviewing your applications are also teachers. They're our alumni, and they're while they're reading it, they're thinking, how could I use this in my classroom? And if there's steps missing or instructions that aren't clear, they're not gonna maybe know where to go with it. So I think it's always good to have another teacher look at it and say, if you were reading this and you were thinking of implementing this in your classroom, like, is there anything missing? Is it clear? Um, Obviously, really making that strong contemporary connection, um, making sure, as we said, focusing on your classroom and your students, um, and really like answering the whole question. I've seen this so many times over the years, like the question of how will you bring this experience to your students, your community, your coworkers, and so many of the answers are just, I will bring this experience back to my coworkers, students, and community. And there's no elaboration. So we give you the space, definitely use the space. Yeah, so I think those would be my tips about the application. But we know it's a lot of work. And that's feedback we've gotten. Gosh, your application is a lot of work. And yeah, it is. And you have to put in some hours. The average investment for the study tours is about $6,000 per teacher. You had to put in some hours of work for $6,000. And that really helps us again to kind of sort out who's going to be able to make the most of this experience. But it's so worth it. I'm sure many of you know teachers who have traveled to Germany with TOP. When I first started working here, people were like, oh my gosh, like the best experiences in my life were getting married, having kids, and going on this top study tour. And I was like, that seems like a little bit of a like American hyperbole. Like this can't be true. But I've heard it enough at this point to where, I really do believe it's a life-changing experience for people. I know myself, I went to Germany as a nanny for a family with 5 kids, and it did transform my life. Just seeing myself and my own country. I'm from Texas, kind of comparing that to Germany. I just saw everything different after having that experience. And so I think that that's definitely one of the things that makes the tour so life-changing. And I think the other thing is just traveling with other teachers, like-minded teachers, learning from them, getting, new strategies, new ideas, and new energy and enthusiasm for teaching as you go into the next school year. I think that's also worth its weight in gold. So those are all of my thoughts. Do we have more questions that we need to look at?
We do. And I will just second Jenny. I was a high school exchange student
Mhm.
to Germany, also changed my life. And I think one of the most special things on these trips is watching you all interact with each other, helping each other, oh, you're working on that this year. Okay, so I did that, 3 years ago, and this is how I did it. And just
Mhm.
listening to those conversations and that sharing going on across the nation, right? Being able to meet people that you might not be able to meet otherwise.
Mhm.
Um, it's just love it.
And even
Okay.
Canadians.
And Canadians, yes, yeah. So we did have a question for those reapplying. Does employment verification still apply if you are employed with the same employer? No, so we will need a new letter because we do have to see that you're going to be employed for the next year. So that's part of the employment verification, not only right now, but are you going to be employed next year? We understand there might be unforeseen budget cuts, but supervisors will write that in there too. Like, I cannot predict this, but do we have all funding? Then yes, this person will be employed. Um, And then the next question is, how thorough does the lesson plan need to be? Does it need to be in a special format? So again, we know there is a space limitation. I will say use as much space as you can. It does not need to be in a special format at this point. So if you go on the trips, when you write the lesson, when you come back, we do ask you that you put it into the inquiry design model. We do provide a template for that. Um, but I am going to copy and paste. Oh, that one did not go through. So we do have a new online lessons portal. And this is just, it should be a shortcut, gute.de/top lessons. Along with our website freeze, we are seeing outages. That is one of the sites that's being hit with the outages, because of course it is. So what I will do is share the link to, we have our middle school text, Let's Explore Modern Germany. Um, I can put into the chat right now. If you want to see some examples of lessons that we have published in the past, again, we are not expecting the inquiry design model. You know, again, we know that there are limitations. You can't put in website links because that's going to take away characters from you and things like that. Like you are going to be limited in what you can do. You're not able to upload handouts or anything like that. But um, this can give you an idea. And so then I can do Germany in Focus, which is our high school one. So these are linking out to issue so you can see the entire text.
I just popped in the
Oh,
whole
there we go.
issue.com/top teach Germany.
Yeah,
You can everything.
thing on there.
So
Yeah.
basically, it's just a platform that displays the previous PDF formats.
Mhm.
So you can see all of that. But if you get lucky and the lessons
Mhm.
portal is working when you click on it, then you can search everything
Mhm.
by topic. You can filter by grade level and things like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we did get another, are you looking for a single lesson or an entire unit? Single lesson suffices. Yeah. So it's just incorporating contemporary Germany into that lesson, into the topic that you have chosen.
Yeah, so currently no specific format. We didn't want to create a bar for anybody by saying it has to be an IDM at this point. For teachers who don't know what yet that is yet,
Mhm.
then that's another aspect then of the professional development that you receive through the program is learning
Yeah.
that new lesson plan format. And so I've seen a lot of different kinds. Some are more descriptive and are first I will do this and then I will do this. And so it looks
Mhm.
like paragraphs. Other ones are bullet points. So it's really freestyle, however you want to communicate what you plan to do in your lesson. Again, I think the key is just having somebody else look over it and make sure that it's coming across clear uh,
Mhm.
to another teacher. And as Mallory said, it's hard to feel creative sometimes on lesson plans, but it is a lot of teachers who are going to be reading the applications.
Mhm.
They're reading a lot of applications, and so if you can think of something, a strategy or a resource or something that might make your application stand out a little bit,
Mhm.
that can help you. I think the lessons where it's just, you know, a jigsaw or read this article, this article for one of our reviewers who's reading 20, 30 applications, that might get lost in the shuffle. So that's something
Mhm.
else to think about. The reviewers love it because they're like, oh my gosh, I have like 10 new strategies to use in my classroom
Yeah.
out of this. So they also enjoy getting to read your
Right.
applications.
And if anybody here has applied in the past and is here looking for tips, you'll notice that that is something we did change this year is the lesson plan format. So it used to be that we gave you articles and you were supposed to incorporate the articles into that lesson plan. So we're making this change in the hopes that it gives you a little bit more freedom to be creative with it by giving you more topics and sort of not focusing in just on a specific article. So giving that freedom to you. Yeah. Yes, somebody does remember. Right. Any other questions? All right. Oh, there we go. lesson for how long of a class period is that? Up to you. So you can put that in there too. Um, you can say how long the class period is. And because that also helps whoever's reviewing it look at it too, and they can say, this there's no way this can be done in this amount of time or something like that. But no, that's not going to be the limitation. But then that can also help you structure, and it can help the person reviewing it sort of structure how they're reading it too, and how they would envision it happening in a classroom. As a former teacher, when I read lessons, that's literally what I do is I see the placement of the students around the room.
Allison, very
Oh, I'm
kind.
sorry. I was copying to a Word doc.
That's
But
okay
yeah,
because
the
this is
question, and so I
perfect.
meant to put that question in the general chat, but thank
No problem at all. This is great. So previously on the applications, it was just like one big space, and we said, these are the components you need to include. And we found that people were missing some of the components. And so we said, okay, like we don't want people to get points off just because they're missing these. And so we broke it down now in the application where there's a section for each component. So hopefully that's quite clear. And so it is, targeted grade level, right? You're just going to say like 10th grade. Focus
Mhm,
questions. I think this is something the reviewers really look at is, what's the point of this lesson? Obviously, the overview kind of gives them a quick idea. Student learning outcomes, including about contemporary Germany, I think is quite important when you're creating the
mhm,
lesson. Make sure that you're putting in there what are the students going to be learning about in contemporary Germany so that the reviewer also is like, okay, I know what I'm looking for.
mhm,
Something else the reviewers also kind of will point out when they're reviewing lessons is I saw what they said the learning outcomes were supposed to be, what the students were supposed to learn,
mhm.
and then I read the lesson, and the lesson did not lead to the outcomes. So that's another thing you want to make sure that the outcomes that you're stating are going to be accomplished with the lesson as you read through it, that those are also being accomplished. Um, and then assessment as well. I think it's important to have that in there. I think that's somewhere where you can maybe be a little bit creative, but I don't think that's one that they look at quite as
Mhm,
closely. I think it's really the the outcomes, especially about contemporary Germany, the actual content, the methods, the procedures in the lesson, and then that they can really see a strong connection to contemporary Germany. Usually, when I'm reviewing a lesson, I sit and I say, okay, I've reviewed this lesson. What will the students know about contemporary Germany after they have been taught this lesson? And I'll just kind of you know, count it off on my hand and it'll be surprising. Sometimes it's like a whole lesson about comparing Germany's constitution to the US Constitution. And then I look at the actual lesson, and the only things the student learns is that Germany has a constitution.
Constitution.
And they never actually like went in depth on this.
Mhm,
Uh, so I think those would be maybe some tips or things to think about if you really want to hit the mark on bringing in that
mhm,
information and making it relevant to your students and something in their lives, like their own constitution or things like that.
mhm. And I will say with the lesson, I mean, part of it is we're looking at, are you going to be able to write a lesson when you come back? In the past, we've printed magazines after each study tour, which only allowed us to, publish 7 to 10 of the participants' lessons. With this new lessons portal, once it stops having an outage, the goal is to publish every single participant's lesson. So we do want to make sure that all of you are getting that shine is what I'm thinking of. Getting that light on the work that you've been doing and what you've been able to see,
Mhm.
and that you can point somebody to like, this is, I went on this trip and this is one of the things that I produced from it. Look, it's published on this site. Um,
Can you tell that we're
yeah.
frustrated by this portal not working?
Yes.
We're like, it'll be up
uh,
soon. The
it'll
freeze
be
is supposed
upset.
to be
Yeah.
over by Friday.
Yes. So, should we avoid similar topics on lesson plans already created from top alumni? I say no. Yeah. No, because that, even if they've done the topic already, you might have a different idea. You might have a different way of doing it. Um, I mean, it could be they did it for high school. You're doing this for middle school too. I know from our 24 fellows, when their lessons get to go up, again, waiting on that freeze. We have two on the automotive industry, but they are two wildly different lessons on the automotive industry. So it can be on the same topics and you have your own spin on it. Yeah. Can you include sources from museums like primary documents, pictures of artifacts, etc.? So not really in the uh, portal, in the application portal. So it doesn't have an attachment feature on there. And so that's where we're saying we understand that this is limiting because you're not going to be able to add a handout. You're not going to be able to link to a website. If you put in a website address, that's going to take up a lot of your character limits. So we know that those things are going to be missing. And so you could put in there, show students images of artifacts, and we would know that you had the artifacts there. Like this is part of your lesson, but we cannot see them. If you get to go on the trip and you write a lesson for Mallory after, and you say that, I will say, okay, I need the images of the artifacts, but we understand you can't do that in the application.
My take on it is you can shorten a link. You can just throw
Yeah.
it into,
Mhm.
wherever, shorten the link. If you have some PowerPoints that you want to include. Within the system, it doesn't automatically hyperlink, but the reviewer could
Yeah.
copy it out and paste it into a browser.
Mhm.
So I think that would be one way if you've got some things that you want to enhance and if you want to include
Mhm.
a presentation or something with it.
Um, okay, there is feedback given to previous submissions.
For people who have applied many,
Yeah,
many
many
times,
times. Yeah.
I will have a conversation with them. I would love to be able to talk to everyone about their previous
Mhm.
application, but we're just two people and we have to do all the things.
Mhm.
So unfortunately, individual consultations about past applications is not possible, but that's why we're doing this info session. So if you
Mhm.
do have some questions, let us know. But we've had, somebody who applied like 4 or 5 times and I
Mhm.
had a call with them last year, so um, we do what we can, but time is limited.
Mhm.
Hopefully you're getting lots of great information from this info session.
Yeah. Okay. There's no way to bold or anything correct for the lesson to help it be more readable. Don't think so. You can put the bullets in, but
Mhm.
yeah. Hmm. And the reviewers know that, though.
Yeah,
They're aware of that. They're equally as frustrated because I think they can also see in their head that this would be bolded and this would
yeah,
be emphasized. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
We asked the
Uh,
software developer about that, but because we're under the German government, it's very hard to use third-party software due to like privacy and data protection. So we have to reinvent everything ourselves all the time. So I think the portal does pretty good, but there are some limitations to it, like
mhm.
the ability to format text in
Mhm.
those fields. So but spaces, giving things a little room. It's
Mhm.
5,000 characters. Every year we end up pumping those up. So I think by now it's probably increased quite a bit from what people were able to include 2 years ago. So
Yeah. I think I upped it this year from 4 to 5,
yeah.
just because I got a lot of emails about how short it was. So I gave a little more wiggle room. And the next question, can the lesson be adapted or modified from a lesson created by a museum? I would like to use a lesson created by an organization. However, I have modified it to fit the needs of my school community and current events. I'm gonna let you take that one, Jenny.
I would say it's okay to use resources
Mhm.
from museums and other organizations, but the goal here for us is really to see what you can do.
Yeah.
And so ideally, we would prefer for you to have created the lesson yourself, especially because then the lesson creation later on is an important part of the fellowship
Mhm.
itself. Right? Any other questions about the application or about the tours themselves? In Germany, they
No.
don't say I have my fingers crossed. They say I have my thumbs pressed.
That's yeah.
So I will press my thumbs for all of you. I think having come for this info session already gives you definitely an edge. We hope that it's been helpful for you. And We look forward to reading your applications. It's one of the funnest things that we get to do is seeing how many amazing teachers there are out there, and I constantly wish that I was in all of your classrooms. So,
Yeah. And we constantly wish that we could take more than we can. So
yes,
yeah,
that
yeah.
is definitely true.
Yeah. And I will say the top team will be out of the office for the holidays. I'll put an out of office on that general inbox, letting you know when we are back. That is why the deadline is February 1st, too, so that there is plenty of time after the holidays. If there are questions, we will get back to you when we return. Um, so yeah, if you have different additional questions about the application, we will go to top at guta.de is the best one. Then you get
There you
both
go.
of us. Yeah. Um, no, we will get back to you. We understand this might be the time that you have to be working on it as well. So we'll answer those questions when they come back. But again, there's still a month afterwards to get that application in. And we do not review them before. It's not like the earlier you get it in, the higher priority you are. All the review happens after February 1. Mhm.
Awesome. Well, it was great to see you all. Thank
Yeah.
you. And it'll be fun to match faces to applications.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.